and he loves them both. I mean, he's a sincere person. Everybody in the movie has sincere passion, and that's the kind of movies that we're making, about people who have great love and passion. In spite of the contradiction, in spite of the struggles, what interests me is what they live for and what they love and how they love. That to me is fascinating. And I love watching audiences watch the open of the film. And you first hear gasps, and you hear people say, "Oh my God," and you hear people say, "No way," or "Holy shit," when they see him. And then slowly, when he puts it together, and then the glasses go on, you hear people go, "Oh, wow, looks good," you know. And that to me is the whole movie. You know, that he can look like a very handsome man, and then he can also look like a very not handsome man. And that's true of every character, every human being in the movie. And that's to me, what I want people to leave cinema feeling exhilarated. And what exhilarates me is being with these guys as they live and breathe, as people I haven't met before. I never saw any of these actors do any of this before. They come and give me a piece of themselves, and that's a risk, and that's the greatest trust a director can have.
And someone who can be a con man, but who can be a desperate romantic at the same time. You know, he's truly in love with love, you know, and he's looking for that soulmate, and he's absolutely adoring of the character of Sidney, and he's desperately in love with his adopted son, and he comes to find this love for the mayor because he has a friendship that he's never experienced before because it's so sincere, and everybody has these very surprising sides to themselves.
There's a question way in the back, please. Would you stand up? Thank you.
From over here to your right, gentlemen. Good evening, everybody. Question goes to David Russell and to Bradley Cooper. David, you already made Christian Bale win an Oscar in The Fighter, and you also already made Jennifer Lawrence win an Oscar in Silver Linings, playing with Bradley last year. So how did you convince Bradley to win it this year? And to Bradley Cooper, the question, how do you look upon all these Oscar ratings and suggestions which are made during the award season? Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that you speak English, and I apologize for not speaking German. I think it's very sad that I think German's a very beautiful language, and I wish I spoke it. I wish I spoke another language. But we would never say that I made these guys win anything. I would say that it was my privilege to aspire to create a predicament that is twisted and human, that allows them to have roles that will show as much behavior and emotion as possible. That's my goal. I want to deliver that to them. It's my job to create a role that is vast and complicated and emotional for each of these actors. And so when I go to their house and I write for them and I talk to them, that gets me excited. And then I want to come back and deliver for them. And it's very, very exciting to try to do that, and it inspires me. So it was my privilege to work with Christian, and he created that phenomenal character in The Fighter. We both love and are drawn to similar things in people. We both love that the guy in The Fighter, in spite of everything else, was a lovable person in real life. And we find the real guy in this. He looked like the guy in real life, looked like that, and looked like this. That's what they looked like. They were real guys. And they were lovable, and that's what we were attracted to. And that, I don't know, that's a contradiction that gives, and then the magic happens. And for Bradley, you know, the same thing. You know, I love when, I love putting the camera on someone and people going, "Who's that?" I love that people said 5 minutes into The Fighter, "Wait a second, that was Christian Bale?" Like, people came back to me, they said they watched the movie for 5 minutes, they didn't know it was him. And the same thing happened when Robert De Niro met him. He said, "Who's that guy?" I said, "You just shook his hand, that's Christian Bale." He said, no, the guy, the fat guy. I said, "That's Christian Bale, that guy." And he said, "Oh, wow, he looks really different." And that's a big compliment from Bob. And he went over and shook his hand, you know, and that he properly introduced himself. Because the first time he just went, Bradley Cooper, Amy Adams, fat guy, Jennifer Lawrence. And Bradley, same deal. In Silver Linings Playbook, I love when the camera comes around him. This was very funny to see with audiences. They were so excited to go to a Bradley Cooper movie. And the camera would come around, and you'd look in this disturbed man's face with these scars on his face, and you could feel people get very uncomfortable. And they'd go, not feeling very Bradley Cooperish right now. I don't know what's happening. And then 15 minutes later, they have to get to know another person. They have to re-know him. And that's true of every actor in this movie. So to me, it's a privilege and exciting in cinema to see these actors as you've never seen them. And they.
But I think there's also the fact that in my experience, a director allows an actor to give a good performance, and if the director doesn't allow that, it's not possible. It's not possible to give a good performance if the director isn't allowing that. And David definitely provides that environment. His sets are life itself. You have every sort of emotion going on, so you feel very raw when you're working with him, and I think he just instead of it being a vision that he is kind of whipping us to achieve that he has in his head, he has a beautifully written script. That then he says, but you know what? He's got the confidence to say, "Let's see what happens." And when you get that, given that freedom, it's not just luck that there's been so many successful and embraced performances come out of his films, and it's because of the approach and the presence and the atmosphere that he creates on the set that allows the actors to do their very best work, rather than feeling that they have to do sort of unnatural work in order to achieve some director's vision that might not be quite appropriate any longer. And
just to piggyback on that, I think the other thing is, at least I feel, that you don't feel like you're really alone in the process. He's right there with you emotionally, and that's as raw as the environment is, it's also very safe. And you also, I know, sort of from my experience, sitting across from Christian, I have this curly hair, he's got a sponge on his head, and we're looking at each other with zero irony, and truly, the stakes are high, and it's very alive, and that's when those sort of magical moments that David talks about can occur, when you're in an environment that has been created by this man from a very personal place, for us to then be personal within it, and that's sort of why I would ever want to be an actor, to be in that kind of arena with these type of people.
And I think also one of the funniest things for me always on the set was watching where David was going to hide on a set, because he always likes to be very close to the actors. He wants to be able to feel the atmosphere of the scene. And so literally, he'd be trying to hide under our chairs, and then Linus, the DP, would say, "No, David, I see you there." And then he'd be jumping over and jumping under a table somewhere, and finding a spot where he could be very, very close, and so get a sense of being right there with us throughout everything.
As opposed to a director being in the other room watching a monitor, which is a completely different experience.
Yeah. Your question in the middle, please. Could you please stand up? Yes.
Hi, Henning Hönicke, Brigitte Magazine. Question for Mr. Russell, somewhat tying into the previous question. I love the look of particularly Mr. Bale's character, and was wondering, how did that come together? Like, at what point while writing the screenplay were you like, overweight guy, somewhat balding, somebody get me Christian Bale? Like, or did you get a phone call saying, "Hey, how do you like to pace?"
Well, that's what the guy looked like, okay? The guy looked like that. There was a real guy who looked like that. The real guy looked like that. There was a real person named Mel Weinberg who looked like that. Sorry. What?
No,
and I said, and I knew that I wanted a very voracious actor for that role, because the role really is not about the hair or about the weight. It really begins from inside his heart, and that's a very intense thing, that these guys do. And my only hope is to provide the opportunity and any inspiration or ideas. But they do that. They turn into They live for that. They from the feet up. They turn into another person. So you look in his eyes, and you can feel like he's a person, and he's got it all. He's feeling it. It's like doing drugs, because he's described it as a waking dream. That's why I don't like to call cut, because once we get going, it's like you're in a dream, or Jennifer has described it as like being high, and I don't want to interrupt that. It's like something is happening where everybody's over in that other world. And people call these movies a comedy. I don't know. I never thought of it as a comedy, because to us it's just committing to the characters so completely that humans are either heartbreaking or funny. They just are. Even when they're having heartbreak, you kind of go, "Wow, look at that guy." It's kind of, very strange behavior. And he looks funny, he's acting funny.
And I think I love the idea. I mean, if video stores still existed, that they would have an immense problem in working out which category to put this film in. You know, because it's drama, there's tragedy, there's comedy. You know, who knows which category it really goes in? But it shows just how very human it is. And talking about the physical, you know, obviously it's not the most important thing. You know, the heart and the mind is really what tells the story. But you know, I look at you now and I see your physicality, and it tells me something about who you are. And you look at me, and we look around, and it tells you something. And when you've only got 2 hours to introduce a character, first impressions vitally important. And so the physicality is enormously important, and that it gives you the first impression, no words having to be spoken about who this man is. And so, and I just consider myself to be so bloody fortunate to do the job that I do, that I think, well, why start working just on the first day that you turn up? You know, if you can, start working months ahead of time. And I was so charmed by the real Mel Weinberg, who Irv is based upon, and the fact that he wasn't a smooth, vain operator, which I expected him to be, that I just felt it had to be that way. You know?
Okay, the question here on the left side again.
Yes, I'm here, Dini Hamidi from Clan Kosovo. Question for director. As a writer and director, do you find yourself twisting the script while shooting? And you mentioned that you don't speak German, but I just recently saw last week Bradley Cooper speaking excellent French. Where did you learn that? On French television, I saw you.